I
This
have to say,
conference will now be recorded.
all right. And so without further ado, over to you, Dunling.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Yeah, this is a Canada Thistle is almost a constant topic for organic farming, and I'll give you a very little brief background information. Canada Thistle is classified as noxious weeds not only in Saskatchewan but also in BC, Alberta, Manitoba, Ontario, and Quebec. These weeds occur both in the conventional system and the organic system. The plants have a powerful root system, and roots may extend up to 20 feet horizontally in one growing season and can grow 10 feet deep until it reaches the soil moisture is start to grow laterally. And recent agri-food AFC's weed survey shows that Canada thistle has become more severe since 1970s in Saskatchewan. In past 2 decades, it constantly ranked at number 4 or number 5 on overall weeds ranking in the province. Tillage and cultivation is a common method used to control Canada thistle. Here are several types of cultivators that are used, popularly used by producers. The key in the cultivation is the cultivator blades must be overlap each other and leave no room for the weed roots to escape. So some of the old ones, like a Noble blades cultivator, works well. I want to take this opportunity to introduce a research work done by Ann Wells from Center of Experiment and Transfer in Organic Agriculture in Quebec. And she did excellent research work using the tillage. The first thing she did is the fall tillage. The idea is that the Canada thistle roots, when being cut, are exposed to the cold, frost, or extremely cold climate temperatures. It will be freeze and it will be frozen and then dead. And so what they did is at a later date of the fall, and you use a tillage to cut the roots. And if it's possible, try to pull it up to the surface and let them to expose to the extreme cold weather. I'm sorry, I think, yeah. And here's the results after the later fall tillage. On the left side of this photograph is a fall plowed, and on the right side, nothing was done to the right side. It treated as a control. You could see that on the right side, the thistles turn green very quickly in springtime, but on the left side, a lot of ground are exposed. But when they calculate the thistle counts, they are exactly same, except one side grow vigorously, other side is suppressed. If there's no crop growing on this field, like in 4 weeks time, all thistles grow really well and then you don't see any difference. That's what the fall plowing effect is. If you don't do anything, leave it as spring fall follow, and then the difference tend to be disappeared. But if you grow a crop, it will be different. And what they did normally, they did the experiment was done by not normally. What the experiment was done was they used 1-pass cultivation versus 2 passes cultivation and 3 passes cultivation. Initially, the thistle count was 22 plants per square meter. That's a tremendous amount. The photograph showed that this photo showed the control experiment, which doesn't have any plow down there. And when they did the first 1 pass, they did on May 9. So they cultivated the land May 9, and then May 10, next day, they seeded the corn. And when they do 2 passes, and the first pass was done in May 9, and after wait for about slightly over 3 weeks, on June 5th they did another pass. They did another plowing, and then in the same day they put the corn in. What happened after that? And here's the results. Compare 1 pass and 2 passes. When 1 cultivation pass in May 9 and a seed date on May 10, the field have a lot of weeds on the left side. You can see that some thistles are overgrown of corn. The corn was relatively short compared to 2 passes and a delay in development. Even the corn was seeded early, but the final yield was 0 tons per hectare. And however, with 2 passes and a seeding date on June 5th, plants were taller, Canada thistle was suppressed, and you could see that it grew really well. And even it was seeded late compared to the 1 pass. The final corn yield was 9 tons per hectare. So you could see 1 pass and 2 passes make a huge difference. And here's the 3 passes. 3 passes occur on May 10, May 17, and June 19. What their standard was, after the first pass, they wait for the Canada thistle to regerminate, and once you see the shoots, and then you could do another pass. And the seeding date was June 20. This time they grow soybeans, organic soybeans.
Canada thistle.
And here are the results. After 3 passes, you could see that weeds is not issue. And because weeds was drained, the energy in the weeds roots was so drained, and they lose compatibility with the soybean. So soybean would be able to germinate and grow well. And some of those Canada thistles are this small on the corner picture. You can see it. Oh, okay. So I was thinking because Ontario got a better, Quebec got a better climate compared to Saskatchewan. They have a longer growing season. They can afford for 2 passes or 3 passes. But in our case, we may not be able to. So the fall cultivation can be done. And if it's a cover crop year for you, and you could do this kind of tillage, like doing 2 passes or 3 passes, you could seed your cover crop slightly late, and to do that kind of weed control during that year. The next thing is growing competitive crops. I just list those crops for you, and then we will think what kind of combinations we could use to control thistles if the thistle situation is really, really bad. As we know that cereal crops can help control Canada thistle, wheat, oats, barley, chickpea, and fall rye, all doing good things. Cover crop like alfalfa, sweet clover, particularly the yellow blossom sweet clover, appear to be very effective in suppressing Canada thistle. Of course, if it's your cover crop year, and you could adopt multiple species cover crop mixture, and when grow a dense crop, it would definitely have, this crop would have a excellent capability to control thistles. Not only just thistle, but also other kind of annual and perennial weeds as well. Here I want to specifically single out the fall rye, because the fall rye can produce organic compounds that prohibit Canada thistle to grow, and scientists call it allelopathic. And here's if you look at the right corner, right bottom photo, that's the fall rye, and the thistle growing really well on the edge, like the dike there, and inside of the fall rye crop, the thistle was sparse and greatly suppressed. So now I would suggest a 3 years management practice for combining the tillage and cover crop or crop rotation to control the Canada thistle. For year 1, this is a kind of proposal for the very bad thistles field. And if it's not that bad, you probably don't need to go through this kind of 3-year process. But this, we hope this will be effective, and think about that if that makes sense to you. For the year 1, you could use cultivation, because it's a cover crop year. Oh well, I'm sorry. I think I see it wrong photo. For year 1, you could cultivate in spring in 2 passes, and then grow a cereal crop like wheat or rye, oats or whatever. Under seed a yellow sweet clover to that cereal crop. And in the first year, you will be able to harvest a cash crop, and after the cereal crop is harvested, and leave the yellow sweet clover to grow. And in year 2, you don't have to seed anything in springtime. Just let this yellow sweet clover to recover. They start growing and take off pretty quickly when weather or soil moisture is good. Sometimes in beginning of July or middle of July, these sweet clover start flowering, and this time you could use a ruler crimper to terminate it, and that'll be like in July, and then leave it for about a month and direct seed fall rye into this field, and then you would sometimes in end of August or beginning of September seed fall rye. This is the second year. Year 3, the fall rye start early in spring and overgrown the weeds if there's any left. 2 crops, particularly in year 2, you have this Canada thistle badly suppressed. And year 3, when the spori started to grow, it started to produce those organic compounds, and then they further suppress the Canada thistle. And in the fall, and in probably in early fall, and you would have a pretty good spori crop, because this is after the green manure season. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. And yeah, let's think about that and discuss any of those issues you might have.
All right, great. Thank you so much, Dunling. So we have 43 people on the call this morning. So there's a lot of knowledge and expertise here, I'm going to say, in dealing with Canada Thistle as well. So really opening it up to questions and comments, or if you've had anything that's worked for you and you want to share it with people on the call, or things that haven't worked, that would be really great. And we'll just throw it open, or throw it over to everyone in attendance. And just so you know, you've all been muted, but are able to unmute yourself. So if you're on your desktop, it's probably the mic button is along the bottom of your screen, and you can just click on that to talk. And it usually takes that first person to say something to get things going. Or if you'd like to put your hand up, there's also the ability to do that. Oh, or ask in the box here. So what's the best way to manage, control the fringe? Question mark. Do you have any suggestions, Dunling? Or anybody on the call? Dunling? Oh, you're on mute. Oh, Dunling, you're muted?
Oh.
There you go.
Oh, okay. Now, it's amazing. The computers. Yeah, that's what I saw, the property constant moving, yeah. And the starvation is a way to do it, because there's nothing to compete with the thistles growing on the edge. So you probably have to do it, yeah, that way. Thanks, Martin. Martin got lots of experience on a lot of things, yeah. I told Martin earlier time I farm on pepper, and he's real.
Absolutely, yes.
His experience is real.
And what about things like I'm thinking preventative, you know,
Preventative.
Is there any, yeah, like building, is there any research that shows that a deficiency in XYZ, creates a very nice environment for Canada thistle to thrive?
Canada thistle is a tough weeds, and it grow both in difficult situation and a good situation. It didn't, like, I don't know. I feel like there are Canada thistle like Russian soldiers. They're durable. They could. What can we do? And recently there was a proposal coming to the organic research cluster about prevent the Canada thistle seeds to spray. That's part of the comprehensive management system. But for Canada thistle, the major concern is the spreading of the roots. So every node would be able to develop a plan, and they are really crazy when they start growing. They don't really care too much about spring soil moisture, or like the crop didn't grow, thistle would continue. And yeah, the best way is to to control it at an earlier time. Once you see the Canada thistle in your field, take measure immediately. Don't let it to establish and start extend. And some farmers, I do find a couple of farmers when I visit the farm in earlier time, say, oh, I got a patch of thistles over there. I would do it later time, like in the fall when I'm not busy. But don't let it go. And once it's gone, and it could become a bigger issue.
Okay.
And if it's really, really bad.
Okay, perfect. I'm just gonna, sorry, darling, to interrupt you. Doug
But
Crabtree had his hand up, so I'm just gonna pass over to him if that's all right.
Doug said, we seed our border to perennial grass, legume, alfalfa, or saffron
Yeah,
mix. This
yeah,
tend to crowd out the Canada thistle
right.
and allow moving of any breakthrough.
Mm.
That's a
Maybe,
good idea.
yeah, do you want to talk a little bit more about that, Doug?
Well, I'm not sure there's too much more to say. Thank you.
Oh,
You know, we generally feel like we need to have our borders in some kind of buffer anyhow, and that having a vigorous stand of perennial seems to limit any kind of incursion we get from the edges.
Doug, do you find you need to mow those edges? Because that's what I was kind of looking, that I'm still finding perennial, like Canada thistle, creep into those areas, especially right at the edge between where the field boundary and the tillage is. We were thinking about adding on a 3-point hitch rough mower to maybe kind of just mow the edges and keep them all nice and shorn. And you do that, and the others on the call do that?
Yeah, we really haven't had much trouble in the borders. We still have some patches in the field, but we also farm in strips, so we've got access every 240 feet. So it's a little easier to go chase the patches with a small mower if you can get that close to them.
great, thank you. Anyone else on the call? Oh, we said, I read somewhere that Canada thistle may indicate low calcium in the soil. Has anyone, I know that there's,
Yeah, I got lots of calcium and lots of thistles. I mean, I often thinking about where Canada thistle originated from. I mean, Canada thistle is not a native Canadian North American weed. It originated in Europe from ballast that was being brought over to North America. So, I mean, it grows in a wide range of areas on a huge range of soil types and different nutrient types. It is so adaptable, back to what Don Ling said. Like, it thrives in so many different soil types, so nutrient environments and ecological areas. It's a wizard. I don't see it as being limited to one soil nutrient balance.
Yeah, actually, Lana Serovi from UFS earlier time, she did text. She took samples from those Canada thistle loons and analyzed the calcium, and actually the calcium, concentration varies differently regardless of calcium ions. And I thought this is some people's sales tactics, but I don't think it really worked. But there's no scientific evidence, I mean strong evidence on that thing.
oh, and we've had another question come in asking about experience with grazing as compared to, was it cultivation? Sorry, it went off my screen there. Yeah. What is your experience with grazing as compared to cultivation? Does anybody have experience of that? Ooh.
Did anybody had grazing experience?
Yeah, I'll jump into that, I guess.
Thanks, Doug.
The animals have to be pretty hungry. If there's anything else to eat, they might eat the things that were competing with the thistle and leave it behind. They also have to be managed really tightly so that you kind of confine them to the patch. So there's a lot of management. That said, the right circumstance, the right animals, the right grazing manager, it can have a positive impact.
I heard one producer in northwest in Saskatchewan, near what was that place? About 1 hour northwest of Saskatoon, and what they said, they use goats, and when the Canada thistle was younger, and goats actually love it.
Yeah, we had just with Stacy and Dale in the chat box say, get goats, they love it. They also like tansy.
Okay.
So that's good to know. Oh, and then another Marion's Karen, horses will eat the heads and cattle trample to cause it to be challenged. So again, it's about as Doug was saying, it's about the type or the kind of livestock, and then the management of the livestock. So it's a puzzle, just like organic farming, trying to figure out exactly what what practice is going to work on your farm in your system. Anyone else have some thoughts on Canada Thistle, or what's worked for you or what hasn't, or things you've heard and are wondering if other people on the call have tried or not?
I can't figure it's Stuart McMillan calling here, and I can't figure out how to raise my hand, so I'll just launch in.
Yeah, jump in. Yeah, please do. Yeah.
One question I had for the other producers on the group is, of course I'd heard if you want to control Canada thistle with tillage, you got to keep aggressive. You need to prevent it from seeing the light of day. When it pops up, you got to get right back at it and till it again. My go-to piece of equipment that I was really enjoying was a high-speed disc. But I feel on that particular field that had a moderate level, after I went at it aggressively, it had a significant problem. I felt the only thing I really achieved by going at it aggressively is in soil disturbance. It was too much Somerset fallowing, but I feel that the discs really just chopped the thistles into smaller and smaller pieces and spread the problem rather than controlled the problem. Wondered if other producers found a similar problem with high-speed discs, whichever brand they are, or if there's particular tools, like, of course, folks will say a Noble Blade or a rod weeder. We have neither of those, but perhaps we add them in. What tools have worked, and have you found that tillage with a high-speed disc has amplified the problem?
Yes, it's a spreader.
You have to realize that once you start cultivating it, it's going to try and get back into growing. So it tends to cause it to, the cultivation does stimulate it to grow. And so you might notice that it increases, and if you're chopping it up, those pieces will grow. But part of that is when you're cultivating it that many times, you are forcing it to use reserves from its root, and it's the root that keeps it growing. So the little pieces, as much as they might appear to be growing, they don't have that network of big roots down below. Because if you take a Canada thistle from seed, it's easy to kill because it doesn't have that deep root system. The little pieces, again, won't have that deep root system, so they're easy to kill. It's the ones that have been there for a while that have put that deep root system 6 feet and more into the ground. That's what you're trying to kill and starve that root.
Okay, thanks, Martin.
And
I
I think the most important part for thistle management is timing. So when you cut those thistles into small pieces, every knot would become a plant if the environment is good for that thing to germinate. If you ever do this, so fall control is most important, because if it's close to the frozen time and you do this and you cut those kind of thistle roots into small pieces and spread them on the surface, it won't become a plant because it won't be able to survive the harsh winter in Saskatchewan. So if you do that in springtime and when weather, temperature is good and the moisture is good, you are spreading.
Yeah, and that was Dunling. It was exactly where I found that the high-speed disk is a problematic tool, because what it does, we're having a set of disks that run in offset. They're in different directions. That's great chopping, but then there's roller baskets behind it, so it creates a perfectly packed seed bed, and very few of the roots are exposed on the surface. They're chopped up and planted and have it packed right in, as if I was trying to almost plant them on purpose.
Right. And if you use this
Versus a
noble,
cultivator that might have left them up, or even a rough disc that would leave them more exposed.
yeah. Well, if it's a metaphor, it would not be a problem, because it's frozen would go down like a meter deep. So all those roots cut it into pieces, which was cut it into pieces, will be frozen and will be dead. But not
yeah,
springtime.
But
yeah,
theoretically,
go ahead.
hi, this is speaking. Sorry, I couldn't get it online, so I'm coming by phone. But Dunling, frost goes down 6 feet. Doesn't it kill the roots that are 6 feet down too?
No, I mean, when you cut those, when you do the tillage, it's only on the surface, like 60 inches.
Mm-hmm. But my point is, if frost goes down several feet, especially in a winter where we've had no snow cover, isn't there going to be frozen ground 4, 5, 6, 7 feet down as well? I mean, aren't those roots?
The temperature over there is a pretty warm compared to surface layers.
Okay.
So the temperature from the bottom start, the heat start to release to warm up the soils from the deep upwards in the winter time. So even the temperature over on the surface is minus 40, but down there could be like a minus 20, and which is, many of those kind of crops we have when they become winter hardy, because they also benefit from those warmer temperature underneath horizons, like some of those trees.
So we've had Doug has put into the chat box, using a longer, more diverse rotation seems to help, changing timing and tools used for tillage and different seasons of crops. And then he said, I see others have struggled
I guess it's not a webinar, it's a go-to meeting.
with increasing CT in narrow rotations. And I think too, I mean, I know one farmer, in Saskatchewan, a bit similar, I guess, to Doug's operation, in that he strip farms and he has shelter belts between his fields, and he's been doing that for probably over 20 years. And he also has a rotation. I always joke a little bit. He has a rotation for everything. So he's been doing it, for quite a number of years, and has learned different things. So that seems to be some of the answers that are coming forward here today as well. And then Martin has put into the chat box, there's a certain amount of desiccation in the top cultivated area where the soil is loose. And let's see here. Just going back, there was a question in the chat as well from Dan. Said, has anyone reviewed any research showing that thistle thrives in compacted soils which are anaerobic? Tillage generally creates compaction and anaerobic conditions. So just throwing that out to the group. Ooh, silence.
Leonard here. It
Hi.
grows anywhere that nothing else is growing. But I find that when I've dug down, that 16 to 18 inches is where the roots go across. When I cultivate in the fall, that's how deep I need to go. And I also find that in the, if you're doing it during the summer or whatever, the disc or whatever you're using, you dare not do it just before a rain because that will spread it. You want to have a nice dry time afterwards. And the more you, like I find that I've done it late in the fall, late, just before the frost, bring up as many lumps as you can, if you can. But I'll go over it several times. The only thing is you need to do is when you've gone over it that much, you better put some snow fence up because it's going to blow.
Mm, mm. Great. Thank you, Leonard.
Hey, we found the same thing around our way. We're about southeast Saskatchewan. We have a small 5-foot wide cultivator. We usually put it behind one of our stronger tractors, and we usually till about 3 feet down. And we'll start shallow. We'll do about a foot, and then go crosswise to that, till about a foot further down, and then max out the depth on that cultivator and try to pull those roots up as deep as possible and bring them right to the surface before the frost. We thinned out a lot of our patches, but we still have a hard time getting rid of them. But we find we pull up a lot of rocks doing that too. Like we're able to pull up a lot of large rocks whenever we're doing that. But we usually hit it at a cross angle each time and try to yank as many of the long roots to the surface as possible.
Great. Thank you for that.
Yeah, Leonard here again. I found too going afterwards with the rod weeder will pull more of the roots to the top.
Mm.
That's a great idea.
Have anybody done that? Like did a good fall tillage control cultivation and then seed a cereal crop early in spring?
We tried, but we haven't been able to seed early in spring with a cereal crop. Usually we try to get 3 tills in before we seed every year just to make sure our wild oats is under control, or else that goes right out of control. So we haven't been able to try that us personally.
So the spring cultivation is not towards the thistle, right? Because thistle will delay to germinate about a month.
Yeah, usually the spring cultivation is just for everything else, and then the thistle is afterwards. We do 1 year on, 1 year off cropping though as well. So when it's the year off, that's when we're especially concentrating on the thistle. If it's really bad in a crop here or there, we'll go into a field and try to control it. But it all depends how well the crop took off and how controlling it is of the soil.
Right. And I'm wondering if that would work if you got a really good fall thistle control, and then you seed a cereal crop really early in springtime. Don't wait for the weeds. And if you got this in-crop weeds control, like the cultivators, and is that possible? Because in conventional systems, the early seeding time is critical for weeds yield. And what they said is 1 day earlier means 1 bushel of wheat yield. So I wonder if you could start seeding the wheat earlier and then they would germinate. Wheat germinate at a low temperature. Even above 0 degrees, they start germinating. So if you seed early, they probably would start to establish quicker, and then they would be able to compete with weeds as well. Don't wait until those weeds coming out and then cultivate it again and then seed the wheat. Probably would get a better yield.
Okay, so I just joined this a little bit late. I'm wondering, because I just listened to what he said about seeding early. So Susan up at Kelvington, we moved to seeding earlier. We seed almost as early as chemical farmers. And my goal is to get as many bushels as I can with whatever thing I choose. So when people are talking about what they're doing, do we have any idea about what kind of yield we're talking about so that we can compare? Because I'll throw it out there. You know, we consistently get, not last year because of the drought, but we consistently get between 50 and 65 bushels of oats. And I grew 60 bushels of oats on a field, regrettably, that looked like it was solid Canada thistle. It came out of nowhere. It was unbelievable, the thistle on it, and we still got 60 bushels of oats on it.
So what time you seed your oats?
Well, let me just look at my notes here. I would say that it'd be around about the 15th. We do one pre-work, and we use a Pro-Till, and we go over it once. And last year, because it was so dry, we had two fields that we didn't work at all. We seeded directly into them, and we did get lower yields on the one field. The quackgrass was the problem. It just took off, but we were so darn dry.
Of course, the problem is you don't know that you might not have got 80 or 90 if you had no thistles.
That's why I'm asking. That's why I'm saying, what are people getting for yields? And I know we all come from different parts of the province and different soils and everything, but like if you're saying that you're getting, typically a 30 bushel yield when you're doing all this, that's different than if you're getting 60, and like you say, different if you're getting 90.
Mounds from Kelvin.
Well, I can give you some of the general ideas about oats yield. If the yield, this is the average across the province in Saskatchewan. If the oats is seeded to after a cover crop, the yield is 80% of the conventional immediately after the cover crop year. And if it's seeded to another cash crop, the average yield is 45% of the conventional of your neighbors.
I'm not sure if you touched on this, Dunling, earlier, because as I said, I couldn't get in on the presentation, so I'm in the phone. But timing, I talked to Martin Ince a number of years ago and asked him if I was to till for part of the season, would it be better earlier or later? And he said earlier. So I did mostly the opposite. Not because it was Martin Ince, because the problem, of course, is that if you seed later, you sometimes have issues with even getting establishment because of the dry years that we frequently have recently. But on the other hand, the experience I've had since then would teach me to believe that, in fact, he is correct, that working the thistles early in the year and planting something later is more effective as far as dealing with the thistles. Now, in this case, I'm talking about putting in a cover crop later on after working for the first 2 months. So I think that that's more effective. And with regards to fall tillage, I hate the idea of fall tillage because of all of the, if you go to all the soil health workshops, webinars that we put on and other groups have put on and so forth, it's an anathema to go in the fall and chew up the ground in the fall. They say, that's the worst scenario in terms of breaking up the homes of all the microbials that you can choose is fall tillage. And so my choice is to find methods that are doing otherwise. And the discussion earlier about animals was I'm hoping to find out whether grazing sheep is going to be effective, because I have a neighbor who started to graze sheep on my land in the last fall and is continuing this year, hopefully. So I will have a better idea as an answer to that as to whether that's more effective. I would much prefer to have sheep chew my thistles to smithereens than have to till them to that status.
And we had a question and an answer in the chat box in case folks aren't following that, and for people on the phone. The question was, has anyone tried heavy mulch or even plastic or fabric around cover over small Canada thistle patches? And the response was yes, they grow through. So that was one question and response, but if there are other responses to that question, please chime in. And then there was also a comment a bit earlier saying, I have, and in quotes, an experimental plot. It's my perennial flower bed. It has continued to grow in the initial place for 45 years. I weed by hand every year and several times. It's spread to the lawn in the quote unquote wet years, but is contained again with intensive hand weeding. I think we beat ourselves up, but the weather is the mitigating factor, or is a mitigating factor. And again, earlier in the chat, when we were asking, about strategies that helped, and one comment was drought, smiley face. So, yeah. So there's many, I guess, highlighting there's many factors that play into the Canada thistle growth and mitigation.
Yeah, back to Will's comments about tillage. Tillage is not recommended for organic systems, but when your thistle become an issue, you cannot get a good crop, then that's the last resort you have to use. I know that it would damage to the soil microbial community structure, whatever, but if it have to do, and then you do need to do that. And my comments to this plastic or fabric ground cover, you don't use, well, there was study in the United States, they're talking about solarization, and which actually use a clear plastic to cover the land. What they did, they actually use, irrigate your soil first and choose the hottest month, like July, August. And after the soil was completely saturated, and use a plastic cover. That's transparent plastic. The sun heat would go through this plastic and heat your ground, basically boil your soil, which was saturated with water, and cook the roots. If you use a black, particularly the fabric, and it basically protects those roots, and then they would just go through. It won't work. But even with this clear plastic, the minimum time will be like 1 month, and sometimes they do, fill up the water, add more water to that place. I don't know how far that would go, but I think if the root system is really, really deep, it doesn't work. But for some gardeners, it might work.
Great, thank you for that, Dunling. And Doug has put into the chat, we have an active population of rust, a biocontrol on our Canada thistle patches. It doesn't kill them out, but weakens and limits their spread. And he's wondering if anybody else has observed this. And then there's another comment in the chat. I had some type of caterpillar infestation which set back the thistle once or twice. And then Marion, I would think the boiling temperatures would kill microbes, is the question. What a question. Maybe that's in response to your comment, Dunling, maybe.
Yeah, I would think so. That's that will kill everything. Yes, absolutely. You're right, Marion. This is not, well, it against the Canadian organic concept. But like those microbes would be able to restore very quickly if your soil fertility level is there, it takes less than one season to recover for the microbes. But for the Canada thistle, if you would be able to get rid of, this is something that you would sacrifice and then do it. Yeah. Regarding to that rust, I'm not sure if that some kind of beetles or mice or what is that thing? It's insects that actually eat the Canada thistle leaves, and they turn the leaf into brown or rust-like. But I'm not sure if that is the exact case on your farm. But some people in Southwest, they have this kind of scenario. They feel like, oh yeah, there are some kind of biocontrol on my thistle. They eat the thistle leaves and turn leaves into yellow or rust, and hope that would control. But actually, that really doesn't work, because that kind of insects is not specific for Canada thistle. If Canada thistle is not there, because other crops are so poor, they don't have enough to eat, so they move to thistle, and it's not thistle specific. It's not going to kill the thistle, and it just affect growth, slow down a little bit, but very next year will come back.
Great, and Deb has just dropped in the chat. John Stavronidis of the University of Regina has been working on developing a biological control for thistle. Sask Organics has been watching the development of his research closely, and so when he's ready to share his results, we'll definitely get a webinar going to share what he has found. And there's a question here, and it might be our last one for this morning, as we're getting to 25 minutes past the hour. So has anyone tried using a torch to burn down top growth? It's coming from Anne.
Anybody? Or do you want me to?
I mean, Stuart speaking here. I was just down in the U.S. and definitely was corn and soybean centric down in Nebraska. And some of the guys there were finding that they felt good control with the weed zapper, not a torch, but they were also doing in-row flame weeding. I think using a torch would be challenging if the staging for your cereal crops, because they tend to elongate around a similar time. But the zapper in a short crop like flax or lentils might prove an option up here, because certainly they felt it had good control for Canada thistle.
Great, thanks, Stuart. And I just want to follow up on the rust discussion here. So Doug added, our rust seems to work at least in combination with drought and diverse crop rotation to keep Canada thistle populations minor. And then I think in response to the torch question, Marion has said, I have weed whipped and found that it does help in mid-season.
What about a strong vinegar, like an organically certified vinegar on them? Would that burn them out, or would that burn the soil out?
Do you hear the thistle laughing at you right now?
They think that's fertilizer.
The caterpillar, I think, comes from the painted lady butterfly, which is cyclical. You know, they do attack Canada thistle quite good, but it's just a suppression. That's if you talk to Clark, he's the weed specialist in Saskatchewan, he says the best time, you have to attack the root. The top growth is there to provide nutrients to the root, and the root is at its weakest stage right when it's sent all of its reserves or most of its reserves up to promote flowering and reproduction. And that's when it's at its weakest. So if you mow, cultivate when it's kind of just starting to bud, that's your weakest time. And then from there on, you try to keep any growth from sending nutrients back to the root.
Thanks for that, Martin. I just wanted to go back to the vinegar and why it acts as a fertilizer. Stuart, Doug, for Canada thistle, I'm assuming.
I'm sorry, that was my attempt at humor. I've never seen it really have a negative impact. And we've tried it a few times and seen others.
Yeah,
It's,
great.
Yeah, and I mean, I think everything I've seen with vinegar, it's fine if you can make it pencil out for controlling an early season annual grass or early season broadleaf weed. When it comes to a strong perennial like Canada thistle or quackgrass, as the discussion was resolved around, all the power is in the rhizome. It's got such tremendous reserves in the rhizome. You could keep going at it and singeing the top growth, the leaves, but if you're not attacking the rhizome, it's just got everything to pull out from. So, you know, I couldn't see it beginning to pencil out with the vinegar to try to actually, pencil out or even work in the end.
I think the
No.
vinegar basically burns the top part, above ground part, and it's really hard to soak into the soils. And our soil contains so much. If your soil is a calcareous, developed from calcareous parent material, you got lots of those limes in it, and the vinegar would react and then lose all the powers, drop the soil pH on the very surface area. And I did talk with Clark before about using vinegar for weed control. You have to use a lot of them, tens of them per acre, and it'll turn into very expensive measure and ineffective. By the way, PMRA is going to approve a new product that basically is a vinegar for organic production for the field crops pretty soon, this summer.
Thank you.
All right. Kim commented in the chat, Phoma macrostoma fungus might be an option to control thistle. Yeah, and that's been researched and talked about for a number of years, and I think the last attempt at commercialization has stalled. So people who were trying to commercialize it just found it too expensive. That in order to produce it, it wouldn't be a cost-effective answer to Canada thistle. At least that's my understanding. So yeah, I don't think definitely not anytime soon will it be an option for organic farmers, unless others have heard otherwise. But that was the last I had heard, and that's probably going a year or so ago at least. So.
Yeah, the company that was working on the research and development, they ended up dropping the license for it because for those exact reasons. So yeah, the last Marla and I heard about it, it was unfortunately sort of dead in the water. But yeah, if anybody has any updates, do let us know. But the one that John Stavronidis is working on is interesting, and according to him, sounds like it could eventually possibly be more economical, and because it's, and Dunling, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's replicating disease that naturally occurs in Canada thistle and then sort of replicating it in a lab to become eventually a biocontrol. But again, that's not approved for use at the moment either on a large scale.
Yeah, is that the one that kind of turns the leaves white?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and John Stavronidis, he was at a couple of our events years ago, and he was saying that if he welcomed anybody that witnessed thistles with white turning white in their fields to pick it up and send him a sample 'cause, yeah, to his lab. So
Yeah, and maybe Deb, maybe it's worth following up with John and asking if he still is interested in that, and we could include it in our digital newsletter, just to help him out, and a way to remind people that the research is going on as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Great, thank you. All right, well, we're just 3 minutes. Well, it's 9:30. I'm used to 9:30 Sask time, so I think we will bring today's session to a close. I would like to thank you all for being here today. We had over 40 folks on the call, which is great, and I hope that you've taken something away today. And thank you for those who have contributed, and whether in the chat or otherwise. So thank you so much, and thank you, Dunling, for your presentation. So Deb, our next call is over to you.
Sorry, I was on mute. So
That's
the next
okay.
call is April 6th. And the topic, because it sort of aligns with an upcoming adopt deadline for on-farm research applications. So that's the topic. Dunling, it'll be how to do on-farm research, and then information on how to apply for an adopt project if anybody is interested in doing that.
Perfect. Thank you so much, and have a great rest of your day. And hope
Thank
to
you
see you in
everybody
April.
for joining us.
Thank you.